Okay, we're live.
All right, thanks. I'd like to call to order the January 25th special meeting for the Chagrin Falls Board of Education. Mrs. Brudno, if you would please take the roll.
Mr. Rankin.
Here.
Mrs. Garvey.
Here.
Mrs. Brose.
Here.
Mr. Kanzinger.
Here.
Mrs. O'Toole.
Here.
All right, if you'd please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
With
with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Actually, I'm just going to be joining via audio, so not just for the patriotism, but the flag will just be up there for me. So, okay, if I could have a motion for board recommendation 3A.
So moved.
Thank you, Catherine. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Greg. If you would like any discussion on the item.
I think just a quick overview, we are executing a contract to engage in the search for a new superintendent. And we're going to be working with K-12, which is the same firm that we worked with to bring us our lovely new treasurer, Miss Ashley Bruno. So I think everybody has seen the contract ahead of time. So unless there's any discussion, we could just move to a vote.
Okay, any other questions for it? I think, yeah, everybody's had the opportunity to see the document and given any comments. All right, Ms. Brudno, if you'd please take the roll.
Mr. Rankin.
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey.
Yes.
Mrs. Brose.
Yes.
Mr. Kanzinger.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Toole.
Yes.
All right, great. Is there any other business anybody would like to bring to the group tonight? All right. Seeing none.
You can turn the meeting over to K-12 at this point, I think, and they'll start walking us through getting us organized to get the search started. I just want to make one comment. I think many of you may have seen there was an article in the paper this week. It was a really nice article about Bob leaving and the great opportunity that he has ahead of him in Chicago. The one thing I wanted to clarify is we have close to 1,800 students, not 800, as the article said twice. So hopefully you folks from K-12, I know you were aware of that, but in case somebody reads that and wonders what's going on in our district, that was a typo.
Is there a reason we have executive session on this meeting?
Yes, we need to talk about compensation.
Okay, that's separate from the
of an
K-12
employee.
discussion.
Sorry?
That's separate from the K-12 discussion?
Yes,
Okay, just checking.
right.
Got it.
Hey, Carol, I think you're ready to go.
Do you want my enthusiastic? I thank you again, but thank you. We want to make sure that the people listening in know how much we appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and congratulations to Superintendent Hunt. And we have a tough task ahead of us, but we're very excited about it and know we'll be able to bring you some good candidates. At this time, would you like to give me permission to share my screen? Mike, or are you going to put them up for us? I need the calendar up first, please.
First of all, did everybody bring a copy of the calendar, or do you want us to co-host and bring the calendar up?
I can bring it up if you would like, or Chris, but if you.
Why don't you go ahead and share your screen, Carol.
I think everybody has it. That's good, Carol. So I just go ahead and go right through the calendar.
Okay, terrific. Then if you're looking at your calendar, of course, this evening, the 25th, is our search and organizational meeting. And when you move over to January the 27th, you will see there that's when we'll be posting everything on the BASA website. Your treasurer will be working with Ashley on the OECN website. It'll go on your own website. We'll develop a page for that. It'll go on K-12s, and then we'll have to make a decision later in the meeting as we move through the agenda on whether or not you would like to engage OSBA. That's an additional fee of $250 for that. And that will be completely up to you, and my colleagues are welcome to add to that if they would like. Next, turning your calendar over to February.
Can we just stay on January 1 second? You had on something on the 13th. I'm thinking that was just left over from something else.
No, it's just, no, that was you had a board meeting on January. Your regular board meeting was on the 13th of January.
No, we had the 6th and 20th. Just take that away. Okay.
Regular
That was
board
someone
meeting.
else's, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Mary Kay.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yep.
As we move into February, then, by Monday, February 1st, we would have the search profile sent to all of your people and available for people in your community to complete that, and also the groups that we'll identify here in a few minutes. On the 3rd is your regular board meeting. K-12 does not need to be involved with that regular meeting. Then moving down to February 10th, if you can see that on the calendar. First of all, you only have to worry as board members about the yellow and the green boxes. So please do not be panicked when you see all these dates that might show up in gray. Those are when we would be having meetings. For example, on February 10th, that's our stakeholder search profile meetings. If you approve of that this evening, and you can see with the insert that we would begin with your administrators at 11, your certified staff, your high school students, building administrators, teaching, non-teaching, your civic leaders, of which we will need names to send them specific invitations, and then we will open up a community forum at 6:30. Now, we are very prepared to do that virtually. I mean, we have done that virtually, and we can send everything out virtually, because we know right now we're not sure what your county restrictions are on gatherings, but we are prepared to do that.
Maybe this is a good time, Carol, to ask what are the current county restrictions on group meetings?
Thank you, Tom.
The
Bob,
only
you
reason I'm
also-
asking is we're also doing a search right now in Morrow County, and there is an absolute limit of 10 people in a room at one time.
Yeah, I believe that to be the case. I can verify with the health department. I haven't followed that as much because, schools have been the exception with kids in person, but I'll verify that tomorrow and shoot you guys an email.
Thanks, Bob.
I think it might bear a couple of minutes conversation here real quick, not to tie up time, but this is the form that would be sent out that people can actually get, whether they attend a meeting or not, and can fill that out. Yes, Carol's holding that up. So they can fill that out. It'll be a PDF that they can type in, save. Usually most people scan it and email it back to us, and some people fax it back, and some people use the US mail to get it back to us. But what we can do with those meetings, and it takes just a little bit of upfront coordination, as you might imagine, but we would establish the time blocks for each of those groups. And then we would send out, with your help of your staff, students would be a help of your high school principal probably, to identify the students. And then we could send out a Zoom link to those individuals, like all of your staff, for instance, can get a Zoom link and actually participate like what we're doing right now and get feedback. That's what we've done before with profile meetings. The community forum is something that we would get to your communication person and they would probably shotgun that out to all of your key stakeholders that you have, or any other distribution that you have. We could even put that on your website so people could get that. And of course, we would want your school board members to be able to send that out to all of your contacts as well. So they would have an opportunity to do that. A lot of people don't feel comfortable, when we talked, the last search we did in Newark that I was involved in, although Carol, you did Sylvania 100% virtual, but people weren't comfortable necessarily getting into large groups because we didn't know how many people would show up. If you open that up, the profile meeting for all your staff, and even if you have a gymnasium and 50 people show up, it's going to present some problems, I think. So, but I just bring that out, only mention that to you up front. People always have an opportunity to give us their input, even if it's just the form, but we do like to talk to people. And that's usually how we schedule that in blocks with different Zoom invites down through there until we get to the community forum, which is just a link that we would have open from probably 6:30 to like 8 o'clock. And that would be sent out to everybody there. You could even put it on on your website as a link to that Zoom meeting, because we wouldn't password protect it or anything.
Chris, we had a issue locally where a school board forum or meeting information Zoom was sent out, and they were bombed, and it got pretty graphic and pretty ugly.
Okay.
We have done, typically what we have done is we've allowed people to RSVP, and we get their email addresses, and then 15 minutes before the meeting, ask them the access code. So let's suggest we want to go that direction.
So we'll just have to coordinate that. By the way, that's a dirty shame that people can't behave accordingly. It's appalling, but yeah, we can manage to do that and give people a good experience. And a lot of times it's more convenient for people actually to be able to do the Zoom, so they don't have to necessarily go out to do that. But that's up to you, but we're perfectly prepared to do the Zoom with coordination with you folks there. What our goal is to get over 100 of the profile questionnaires back. I would think we'd probably get close to 150. That's usually somewhere around the range that we get. And that becomes a good report for us then.
Thank
Are
you.
there any groups? I think there are some groups that we should consider having in person. Like I would imagine the building administrators are comfortable. They've been meeting with you. No, you've been doing that by Zoom.
Well, we've done it by Zoom, so we would just have to be able to set up Zoom in the district somewhere. I would.
That's
be
fine. I didn't realize all the district meetings were still taking place by Zoom. Okay.
Yeah. But unfortunately, since we've been doing this, it seems to be most people prefer them actually.
In Sylvania, we were shooting for 100, but when we went virtual, we had over 450 respond.
That's quite a statistically significant search profile. Yeah.
Careful, Carol. You don't know how competitive we are here in Chagrin Falls.
Oh,
Put that out there, and
okay,
set the bar.
100.
Yeah.
We usually get really great response. Bob can share some of the past surveys we've done. And you may know we have a new diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice task force that's running. And we've had amazing response to that. I think, Bob, how many? Do we have over 40? Wow. Yeah. I want to say
we had about 60 sign up, and about 40 have fallen through.
Yeah.
If I was to respond to you, and our goal is to get the most that we can get because it makes it more accurate, Zoom actually will probably get you more participation and files back actually than probably face to face. So let's plan on doing that with Zoom. We'll have a deadline of the 12th. I figured we would probably have quite a few to have to read. That's why I had it gone out on Monday the 15th for you. So Carol, you want to pick that up then?
Absolutely. And then as Chris just mentioned, you will get that information for your review, because we want you to look through it all. Then we would come also via Zoom and get your approval of the results of that profile survey for the superintendent's position. And then once we get your approval and your input, we would then post it the next day onto all the websites. Because as Chris had mentioned earlier when we presented to you, that's our recruitment tool. That's where people really go in and figure out, am I a match or am I not a match for this district, based upon all that input. Then
it also enhances the transparency of the whole process for everybody.
Absolutely. Yes. Any questions about that? I'm so worried about running into overtime that I'm probably going way too quickly here. The next meeting, the 24th, we just have it in green, so you can just hold it. If we needed a special meeting for any kind of conversation about candidates, we're holding that. If that date will work for you, and we'll let you know later whether or not that date's needed. Then your regular meeting on March 3rd, which appears in yellow, again, we're asking perhaps that we would need an extra 30 minutes to review anything about candidates there. But we can see as we get closer, then the following week on March 12th would be the application deadline for all the candidates.
With one L.
Oh, with one L, yes. And then we work very hard over that weekend and we prepare for you. First of all, you'll get a secure portal, and maybe you're used to this from your treasure search. That secure portal has every piece of information you'd ever want to know, including what grade they got in social studies in college, but all the reference letters, everything. But we will create a summary for you because that can be overwhelming to read all that information based upon the number of candidates that you may receive. So we will create a summary and then we will present that to you for the candidate screening, which would be at your regular board meeting on March the 18th. At that time, we would also present to you what we refer to, and maybe you're familiar with it, the upside down stoplight, where we are giving you candidates, but believe me, the choices on who you bring in are yours. We're just giving you all the information that we can find on these candidates, from calling their references, vetting them, trying to find out what matches. And you will receive what we refer to as an upside down traffic light, and then you'll be able to decide what candidates you would like to bring forth for the first round of interviews. We'll also give you some develop some questions that would be used with that first round of interviews, and also some guidelines on how we proceed so that everyone has an equal and fair opportunity in that first round. Do you want to add to that anything?
Oh, well, I'll just add this. The questions that we design are primarily going to be based on the search profile information that we gather, because we want to make it unique to your school district.
Yes, thank you.
And of course, you have input in that if you remember last time. And we spend time with the board going back and forth with that, making sure your questions are in there. And that candidate screening, as we get closer to that, we'll decide whether you want us to do that via Zoom, or a lot of times a Zoom will work for that pretty well, as long as you've got your information. And if you remember, the stoplight is the green are the folks that we think meet your profile the best based on our data. And then yellow is they're good, but they don't quite meet it as well as the ones in the green, in our opinion. And then there may be some folks that should be in the red, and we'll tell you why they are. But again, as Carol pointed out, our practice is to give you our best thoughts, but you can interview whoever you want. It's your search. I mean, we're here to work with you, and that's what we do. So at that screening meeting on the 18th, Carol, in addition to the questions, we'll want to set up how you want to handle the input from your stakeholders, Carol. So
thank you.
So, I mean, we've had good experience with that. Some places, and you do have a large cafeteria straight out the board meeting room all the way down the hall, if I remember, at your high school building. As long as you got a place to set up a table where people can be, they need to have ability to write on, so a table works best. But if you have the ability to set something like that up where you can put anywhere from 20 to 30 people in that and keep them spaced, it's still something that you could do in person. And you can do it by Zoom, but
And those are the meetings on the 29th and the 31st, the first round of interviews that Chris is talking about.
And are those dates okay?
Are those dates okay? That's the most important thing. We can figure it out as we get closer. Are we good on the dates? Because those are critical for all of you to be there.
I want to let the board know that 17th, that Saturday, you would have hopefully selected someone by that point, but that Saturday I need to be in Florida with my daughter.
Is this,
17 of,
we're in March still, actually.
Oh, okay. I'm in April.
That's okay.
okay, let's go to April. Any questions on those first round interviews? The times are shown there on the insert. We start our meet and greet with your community at 5 o'clock, and we can determine as we get closer whether you want that, as Chris described, virtual or in person.
We will work with you on that as things change.
Anything else? Okay. Moving on to April, okay, because Ashley's already there. Moving on to April.
Sorry.
We'll begin then with the reference checking. We always ask our Board of Education to check some references with their counterpart. The president of the board will check with the president of the boards of the candidates, because now we will have narrowed down to your 2 finalists. So after the first round of interviews, we'll narrow to your 2 finalists, and they would come in on April 14th and April 15th. That day, we bring them in earlier in the day so that we set up an opportunity for them to see the district and be available. Now, our gold searches have only had them in for 1 day at a time. And with COVID, well, that gets a little bit trickier, but I know that there had been a discussion about keeping them overnight for a possible breakfast the next morning. So we can make that decision later, but we for sure need to know that the 14th and 15th, you're available for that final interview. It'll start with a meet and greet with the community, and then it'll move into an opportunity for you to do your interviews, followed by a dinner, if you think we should go to dinner.
We just, I know it's COVID, but I honestly am telling you, these finalists, it's important, I think, that people have a chance in your staff and stuff to be able to see folks. I know with that space down the hall I'm talking about, we can set chairs out. We've done it before where they're socially distanced. It's just the experience will be what it should be like that. And I think we can make it safe. Again, the interview is one thing, but after the formal interview, to have the informal where you can go to dinner with the candidate and their significant other, I think is really a valuable thing. You really get a chance to feel what it's like to work with people like that. We coordinate everything. I'll even have it where K-12 will put the credit card on file for any adult beverages for dinner, that if anybody wants that, do this so you don't have any issues with that. Those are usually very nice experiences. And then we will work with you up to like a week before that to know if you want candidates to be able to stay and have breakfast the next morning. We'll coordinate all that out as well. So go ahead, then that leads us into the 17th.
Well, right, because Ashley just indicated that she is going to be with her daughter. The reason the 17th was put in there is because if they are staying overnight for that breakfast, maybe normally we would have the conversations at the end of the 15th. After the second candidate, we would immediately have the conversations. Who do you want to hire? The reason the 17th was put in was only if you were extending them to a breakfast the next day and wanted more opportunity to talk with them.
Yeah, it'll give you time then to do your deliberation, and we didn't want to go too far beyond that, because the further you get away from the actual interview event, it's not quite as fresh. But technically, as long as we know the parameters, as we talk more about contracts and things like that, I think we could handle that and be okay, actually, from our standpoint, to be able to get something on paper, because we just try to get a draft. We start to move the contract conversation forward on the 17th. And then between the 18th and 19th, we try to get that really finalized so that we can head into your regular board meeting on the 21st. But I just felt that if the breakfast, and they can be pretty important to have another crack, to have a couple board members talk to somebody the day after. If you do that, you're going to need to set up another day very shortly after that. So you can just kind of, as a board, talk about what all of you thought about, saw in this process, and who you really think's the person. I think that would be a good process.
Ashley, when are you leaving to go out of town?
It's just a weekend. So we would be leaving Friday I just booked my flights, I can tell you. Friday afternoon to Monday morning. I'll be back Monday.
I mean, can we move back the 14th and the 15th to the 12th and the 13th? Because Ashley's a critical component of that feedback conversation, and I don't want to feel rushed, and I don't want her to feel rushed.
Yeah, I agree. If we can move that back, I'd even hate to try to, have it be Friday morning before she leaves town. I think that's too much to ask. So we need to shift everything by a day or two. And while Chris is checking that out, let me just add in, I was the one who talked to Chris about maybe having the breakfast. And so just so everybody knows, all of the board would be going to dinner with the spouse and the candidate, or the significant other and the candidate. And then 2 board members would take them to breakfast the next day. So often, they might be coming from far away anyway, but it's just one more opportunity to have a kind of a more casual conversation with the candidate, and, help them to feel comfortable with us and us to get comfortable with them. So I think there's value to it if we could squeeze it in.
Probably by the end of, before we start the initial interviews, if I backed up to March, probably by March 29th, before the interviews actually start with the board, we'll probably talk a little bit more about how you want to finalize those initial 2 dates. So we don't have to pull that trigger now, but we can pull it as we get closer to it. But I agree with Catherine. I think if people are driving a ways and they have to stay overnight, they're already there anyway, because they shouldn't be driving home after having dinner with the board at 9:30, 9:45 at night. That's when those usually end, because you usually have a conversation at the end of each one of those evenings. And even if somebody's coming from 30 miles away, they can always go home and then drive back for breakfast the next morning. So either case, I think that's a good thing. And then we could move that special meeting to, if we did the 12th and the 13th, which is okay with me. Carol and Tom?
I think so. Yes.
You okay, Carol?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm hesitating because, yes, I will make it work. Yes. I was going to be away, so I need to make that work. So yeah, that's okay. I will do that.
Carol,
Yes.
when are you back?
I am back. I was flying back on the, I have a daughter that's having a baby, so I was going to be there for that delivery, because that's all, no problem. We will figure out another plan. This is very important. I was coming back on the night of the 12th.
So could we, if we do the 13th and the 14th for the interviews.
Hang on just a second. Carol, Tom and I can probably handle.
Okay, great.
I have a conflict on the 12th, but
okay.
I'm having a medical procedure. I won't say what, but I could probably change it at this time, but
I think it just takes usually 2 of us to handle those. That's why we've got 3 people here. So,
but if Mary Kay has a conflict too, does the 13th and 14th work for everyone? Because then the board can meet the evening of the 15th.
Yes, you're right, Sharon.
And then if we have any issues, we'll still have the morning of the 16th, but
I'm good 13th and 14th.
Okay.
And 15th.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that the winner? Chicken
It was
dinner?
me.
it's good.
For me.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't think the Board of Education should have a member who's helping us with this process miss the birth of a child.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. So
Okay.
that's 100% attendance by all board members for the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Okay, so we'll just schedule the 14th to the 13th and the 15th to the 14th, and then I think the special meeting on the 15th would be at 6 o'clock. That's a good time for you guys. 6 p.m. usually good for that.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's good. That'll begin the contract negotiations. Should be easy easily be able to finalize a contract by the 20th and be ready to go with press releases on the 21st then. So,
Great.
wow. Is that
All right.
good? That's a
good.
great calendar. And it's
Good?
5:34.
Okay. Now, moving to your regular agenda, okay, the actual agenda for the organizational meeting. We are all the way down to Roman numeral number 3. I'm thinking, Catherine, that's you to be the spokesperson for the board. Did you or not? Or are we talking that through?
No, I think we should discuss that. I'm your point person on the board, but usually our board president would be our spokesperson officially for the board. So I think this is something we should. Phil, do you have any thoughts, or does anybody else on the board have any thoughts about this?
And typically, it would be our board president.
And what that means, Phil, is that if we have any difficulties or a situation where we may have a couple of candidates that want to use a couple of these evenings, a special meeting that we've held to talk to the board before they decide to apply or something like that. That's why we're holding the one special meeting, and then a few minutes after your one meeting on March 3rd is if we need to have somebody that wants to talk to the board before they decide what they want to do. We would usually call the board president to check in on that to see if that's okay. As a point person for the board. So, or the spokesman.
Sounds good.
Anybody from any newspaper calls us, we don't call them back. Our next call's to the spokesperson for the board, and you tell us what you want us to do, or we'll give you the data, you call them back. But we don't like to talk to the media unless you tell us to. So
gotcha. Okay.
That's just the kind of sort of thing that what the spokesperson would do.
Gotcha. Yep. Happy to do that.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, the next one, Roman numeral 4, that's your liaison for all that dissemination of information, the profile meetings, messages, securing meeting rooms, all of that. Normally, I think it's the treasurer and Barb Wilson. Has that been discussed yet, or should we review that?
Who handles some of your internal communications and things like that? Is it Barb that handles a lot of that?
Yeah, typically, but I don't mind.
Okay.
Whatever.
Well, it's usually the treasurer. We just try to give you a job description, and then we'll let you talk to the board about some additional stipends. Just kidding. But it helps us carve through things. If we need to set aside time or a room or something like that, if the board's representative kind of like juggles that around a little bit.
Okay, question. And then Roman numeral number 5 on the search profile, we talked about that. Looking again for your strengths, what are prominent issues, the characteristics, and then they will go in and number from 1 to 10 what they value as the lead characteristics in the person you're looking for. Now, one question that I would have about that would be, do you use Google Docs in the district? Then if you do, we would send it to you and you would put it out in a Google form. If your district's used to using that, it makes it a lot simpler.
If your community's okay with that too. I mean, some aren't, some communities aren't very sophisticated with that and don't have a lot of connectivity. In those cases, we just keep the PDF form, but okay. All right, that's good.
We're good?
Yeah.
We're good on that.
So
Great.
Carol, I just want to make sure I was understanding you correctly. So the search profile characteristics, some of which may be in the document we've already got a draft of, but we're going to finalize that. Those will go out in the questionnaire for people to rank for how important they are. Is that what you just said?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's on.
So that would go to staff and community. Just to, the board takes the first stab at, here's what we think is the most important, and then we get feedback from our community and our staff about whether they agree.
Well, this is actually, I don't know, we're saying the same thing. I want to make sure. we usually have, this form usually has items as considered, some of the most important things in most communities. If you read leadership manuals, one of the most important things that they have is this list right here on the back. That's where we kind of got that information from. And we just ask people to give us their best shot on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being most, 10 being least, and try to put that together. Then we kind of put it together in a table and just kind of tell you what different groups would have. I mean, we would have the board group, we would have the staff group, the administration group. So you can see what everybody's ranking it. And then overall, what does everybody say is the most important?
And I would just add, Chris, that those 10 items are based on research at Vanderbilt University, identifying the characteristics of a successful superintendent in districts. And so that's why we elected to use those.
So that's, but we'll pull all that together, read everybody's comments. The hard part, that's actually the easy part, is the tables, is trying to read all the comments that people have in 1, 2, and 3, and trying to synthesize those into, and then count how many people felt this way. And if you remember, we list the ones that we hear more frequently at the top of like number 1, 2, or 3, all the way down. So you kind of get a intensity level as to how people feel about whatever the comments that are common.
So the final product is about maybe 11 to 12 page
Depends.
product that has everything broken out according to an overview of everything, and then by each of the categories, including your students for each of the questions. Does that make sense? Does that any help? Okay, great.
It's just a smaller scale. The treasure search was a smaller scale of what this will be. This is like geometrically bigger, typically.
All right. And again, that will be complete on February the 18th, and you'll get that. Then we will come, I'm sorry, February the 15th. I jumped ahead. I'm sorry. And we'll come back on the 17th,
Right.
and we'll make sure that you approve that. Okay. Now we need the technology coordinator. That will be the person that's going to create the superintendent search brochure and put it on a web page. We'll have a web page devoted specifically to the fact that you're looking for a superintendent and all the things that they would need to know about that. The brochure, a result of the profile, once you approve it, the application form, all of that will go up on your superintendent web page. So when candidates search your web page, they'll be able to see exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, and we'll have the same thing on our website as well. They'll have links with BASA. So, but when we recruit people and we reach out to them, we often send them these materials anyway, so they don't have to go look. And we want to make it easy for people that we're recruiting to come to the table.
Absolutely. We already went over that. Roman numeral number 7, the search profile that we just described to you, that would be on February the 10th. The development of it, the community engagement, but we are going to need from all of you a list of the internal and external stakeholders that you want to make sure get the ability to see this. I mean, it's going to be posted on your website, but it's also always good to put it out to your stakeholders.
Yeah. And I think the board did this last time. You might want to work together to identify what I would again call your key community stakeholders, city officials, township officials, levy chairs. You just had a levy. So, you know,
I'm just going to interject. I already asked Barb to copy what we did with the treasurer, since it was so, recently done. Perfect. And we'll have access to that to add additional names, just Perfect. Like we did with the treasurer. So
good idea.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yeah. Those people, we like them to get a personal invite to the Zoom. Yeah. Okay.
And there will still be the community piece that we usually begin around 6:30, where people maybe that didn't receive that personal invite can also have the link, as you were saying, Bob, that you would mail out to them ahead of time, and then they could log on to that. Does that make sense? How's that make sense to everybody? We good? Are we good? Good.
Is
Thank
there
you.
is there a limit to how many can join a Zoom? Is it?
Well, we'll be sending, if they send out our links, we all have professional level Zooms, so we can handle up to 500 people on a Zoom.
Yes, yeah.
So, but that's a good question, because I've been on Zooms at 100, they kind of bounce off. Ours are good to 500.
But you please know that I do know that we can upgrade to 1,000. So if you get more than 1,000, we can upgrade to 1,000. Okay.
No, we had one meeting where we had a limit, and then people were bothered that they couldn't join.
Yeah.
Okay. But it wasn't at the 500 level.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Great. And now the other piece is that this is just a review of the dates that we've already given you, but we will need to know about OSBA at some point if you're going to move forward with that. And under Roman numeral 8, we're just recapping what we already talked about in the calendar earlier.
Yeah, you just have to decide, and we give you the language that you use at OSBA. Ashley, usually we send the stuff through you. It's $250, and we give you the person's name to call if you want to advertise it on OSBA. So
we take care of that on our end.
Yeah.
And so why don't we just talk about that now? Does anybody have a strong feeling for or against?
I think my opinion, I'll just say it and then I'll just hush up, is that anybody that's looking for a superintendent job is going to be looking at the BASA website. And that's where our links are going to be to everything back to you guys. I love those hyperlinks inside that brochure you guys did. I love that. I mean, they can get all kinds of information off of that, but that's where most people are going to be looking. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But and it's $250, but
yeah,
half our boards don't do it.
If that's what they're going to be looking at.
We have not had many do it, the searches that I've conducted, but it's about 50-50.
Does it add candidates, or is it?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
OECN is going to go out to about 6,000. It's going to be distributed to 6,000 subscribers on OECN, and then BASA. We have people that look at our site. There's going to be people that look at your site. We're going to want on your website a link that says superintendent search, so that people, if they come looking around, will see it and click on it. I think we'll cover the bases without that. But
that's good enough for me. Then I say let's, you've got BASA and everything else covered, and we're not going to lose any candidates. Then why?
Well,
I don't think we will.
Why do it? Okay.
Right.
Tom, you would agree with that, right? Tom,
Absolutely.
worked there forever.
Yep.
Okay, we're good. All right. Next, on the interview preparation, we will go over just the guidelines for the board members at that March 18th meeting, and we will help with you to develop the initial and the final interviews, the questions and how it's going to be handled, what order you want to go in, all of that with you. We'll work right with you. And then discuss if there's going to be any travel expenses for finalists, if they would be coming in from a long distance.
Yeah, we don't usually suggest for initial interviews that the board put themselves out there for anything on that. That should be on them.
Yes, terrific.
But we'll talk more about that.
If there's no more questions on this part, then I would suggest that we move into executive session.
Okay.
Real quick, and if you use a Google Doc, this might not be important, but at where you did the search profile, where you had the instructions on how to mail, at the very last where it's signed by Chagrin Falls, there's missing the N in the word education. The last letter of the document.
Thank
okay.
you so much.
Okay.
Wow, thank you.
It's mine. You never think I won a high school
it's
spelling bee.
In accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.
Cut off.
Can you guys hear me? I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22. The Chagrin Falls Board of Education will go into executive session for the sole purpose of consideration of the following matter: employment and compensation of a public employee or official.
And I will second that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next meeting will be February 3rd at 6 p.m. on video conference. If I could have a motion to
We need
adjourn.
a roll call.
Roll call for
Sorry.
exec.
Ms.
Mr. Reagan.
Bruno? Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Bros,
Yes.
Mr. Kanziger,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Toole.
Yes.
All right, now we'll go for a motion to adjourn.
No, we're
No.
not adjourning.
No, we'll do that after exec session, but there won't be any, no action.
Okay. Mike?
Michael, let us know when we're off.
I'm texting him now.
Okay.
Very good job, Carol, cruising through it quickly.
Well, thank you. Worried about
Thanks.
the time
Thanks for reading those calendars and all that in advance, honestly. Thank you.
so much.
You know, but I'm getting the impression that it didn't seem like you were too off your normal speed, Carol.